Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. I know this is a quite exciting week for AWS User Group India. There is one side which is Community Day, Hyderabad, that's happening in person event. First, one of the large event which is happening in Hyderabad. Second, we have this our entire security boot camp, week two, session one for the week two. And today I'm going to have a interesting topic around how you can handle your multiple accounts and all those kinds of details, right? And I have a wonderful speaker to talk about it. With that, let me start about the entire agenda, right? The entire idea, as I talked about in the last session also, the objective of the event is pretty straight. We want to make sure that you have the right security understanding and the foundational knowledge. So whenever you're working on AWS, you have the understanding of how things are going, what's happening, and all other stuff, right? And that's where we have the speakers from the industries which work in and out on security, whether it's from AWS or some other organization, and have thorough understanding of implementing the security. The speakers for this entire series, here are them. I really appreciate all of the speakers for taking out their wonderful time from their busy schedule and helping us to organize this event. This event is not possible without the support of all of the community partners. Whether I talk about AWS User Group Indore, AWS User Group Nasik, AWS User Group Rajkot, or AWS User Group Dehradun. Along with AWS User Group support, we also have a support from UPS CSA, CNCF Thane, as well as the DevOps community. So I really appreciate all of our community partners for giving us that love and kind of a support to host this event. When it comes to AWS User Group Mumbai, you know where are we. We are available in all the sessions, all kind of social media platform, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Slack, whether it's Meetup, Twitter, Insta, and WhatsApp. So please follow us in the channel so you are up to date and have a latest news of what's happening new in AWS User Group Mumbai, as well as you get the live subscription feed of this entire bootcamp. With that, let me start for today's session. So today's session will be operating securely in multiple accounts in an environment on AWS. And the best speaker to talk about this is Abhishek, Shashank Abhishek. Just to give a quick description about our speaker today, he is a cloud architect as well as he is an AWS ambassador and working as a different kinds of videos. He has his own YouTube channel. He has multiple other kinds of courses on Udemy. So he's a very well-renowned speaker when it comes to the security, control tower, or networking that. Right. So with that, let me get Shashank on the stage. Hey Shashank, how are you doing today?
Hey, thanks, Sanchit. I'm doing good. How about yourself, buddy?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that you took out the time. I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for taking our time to helping us to go through this entire control tower and other kinds of setup. I really appreciate your help for that.
No worries. I mean, anytime, always welcome for, I'm always willing to help and share my knowledge, whatever I have. Okay, so are we good to start?
Yes, we are good to go. Let me bring your screen. Let me stop sharing my screen. So yeah, your screen is live. Best of luck. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Let me know when my screen is visible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
your screen is visible.
perfect. So, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Thanks for joining this session with me on AWS Control Tower. Basically, we will be talking about the concept, and I will give you a detailed demo as well, how you can, provision multiple accounts with the best security practices model, what AWS is providing to us. Now, let me introduce myself. I'm Shashank, cloud architect. I work for a cybersecurity firm, and I'm also an AWS community builder, APN ambassador, a YouTuber, where I try to post all the production-based scenarios, whatever I have learned from my experience, and I'm also an Udemy instructor. Having said that, let's not waste a lot of time. Okay, so AWS Control Tower. Now, before starting jumping into the concept of control tower, just wanted to understand from the audience, are we aware of the concept? Have we ever heard about this word control tower or AWS organization or landing zone? In the chat, anyone? That will help me to understand, like, what should I cover as part of Control Tower? Because Control Tower, it's a huge topic because we are dealing with the security, right? It's a huge topic, and in the backend, it's an integration between different services. Okay, I'm getting few answers. Landing zone, yes. Okay, so perfect. It seems like we have a good set of minds present on this call to understand the concept of Control Tower. So it will be like an interesting discussion going to be happen today. Now, this particular definition, what you're seeing on my screen, it's a basic definition what AWS is providing to us. Easiest way to set up, govern a secure multiple account AWS environment based on best practices established through AWS experience, working with thousands of enterprise as they move to cloud. What does that mean, right? So in a simple term, if I talk about Control Tower, it's like you can provision multiple accounts, you are getting multiple benefits, and it covers with the best security practices model. You can control everything from one place. You can control your security, your policy, your consolidated billing, and everything. You are getting everything at one place in an automated fashion. But before that, is that not the Control Tower? Is more than that, that what we need to deal with, right? But before that, we need to understand, we need to have a basic, at least basic understanding of AWS organization, landing zone, and how many number of accounts at least required at minimum when you are working in an enterprise. We will be discussing everything in detail, and I'll try to be more relative in this the concept, and so that you guys can get better understanding, a crystal clear understanding while dealing with Control Tower. First of all, let's understand the problem statement, right? Because I was doing well, right? Out of my 12 years of experience with IT industry, this is my 10th year into cloud computing domain, right? And I have seen this platform has grown a lot. I have worked from the classic module to the latest module what we have in AWS environment today. So without Control Tower, why AWS launched this beautiful tool, Control Tower, right? Because we were doing well at before without Control Tower as well. Why there is a need of Control Tower? Let's understand the problem statement. These are the few statements, as per best of my understanding, what we have for Control Tower, which is helping us to resolving all these issues. First, management of multiple accounts in an enterprise. So if you're working in an enterprise world, right, you try to segregate your workloads when your business grows. One of the business unit getting certain number of accounts, development, staging or testing, or a production account. Then the other business unit has a different working model. They are getting the same number of accounts or some, let's say, 5 or 6 different accounts. But how we are managing it, right? That's a big question for us. How we can maintain and manage multiple accounts, that too as part of an umbrella. So let's consider one company that is an umbrella. Within that we have different units, right? And every unit is operating their own model, have different accounts. So how to manage that? Second statement is about how you're managing the cloud security posture. See, as an architect, I would say I can not compromise with the cloud security, because within the cloud world, security is first most priority for me. I might compromise with $100 extra paying to the security model, but I can't compromise the security part. How about the operations? How you are dealing with the operations? How you are scaling it up? So for example, today I have started my business, and next few months it's growing a lot. So for that, the demand of number of AWS accounts increases, because I have to work on a model. I have to create a model which follows the best practices, which follows the security model. I can control the policies and everything from single place. Then how we can do that, right? So scalability is another concern. If you're not using Control Tower, a lot of manual efforts required. You can still do it. I'm not denying the fact that you can't scale it, but it takes a lot of time. As an example, right now if you go ahead and create an AWS account, you have to fill 5 pages of form, from your basic information to your credit card details and everything. You have to do that. That's a pain in process, right? And that's where the Control Tower will help us a lot. And finally, cost management. So this is another important factor. I mean, I would like to tell, because I work with businesses, and one of their first requirement is, hey, are we spending a lot in cloud? No, it's not. If you're dealing in a correct way, then you're not dealing you're not spending a lot of money to the cloud. It's all about management, how you are doing it. So let's understand all these problem statement one by one. And for that, I want to take you back few years, right? So I started this cloud journey somewhere around 2013, and where every businesses were started dealing with the cloud journey. And for that, let's say every business has started their journey with one AWS account. Even I have done that the same way. I proposed the same solution when I was dealing with the cloud at the first time. I created one account with multiple roles. We have one account for where developers are doing their coding in the development environment. Then QA guys comes into picture to do the QA testing, the validation of the packages, and then we deploy that to the production environment for the customer, which is a go live environment, right? Now, what is the problem over there? I'm not saying we can't operate on a single AWS account. Still, there are like few companies, the startup, they start their business with single AWS account, but that's not the correct way of doing it. Why? Because there are a lot of different efforts required, a lot of manual efforts. You can't have a common security policy as part of your company. You can not push that to each of the different roles. For example, let's say developer using the same account, QS using the same account, sales team, they are conducting demos on the production environment to attract new customers. That's what their job is, right? So everyone is accessing the same account. The segregation of the roles, segregation of the management and everything is quite a big problem. You can't enforce the security best practices. Management itself is a huge task, and I have dealt with that. Most of the companies have dealt with that, and that's how your structure looks like. Let's say now how I started. I'll share one of my experience. I started with one account with one region deployed with dev, test, and prod environment. So after understanding the world of cloud computing, the platform itself, if you're operating from one region, right, all your workloads are in one region. What problem occurs? One of the biggest problem is if region is going down, then you will be going to lose your dev, test, and prod. Customer will get impacted because few of the customer requires development environment just to upload the policies and test everything over there. Another customer also requires at the same time, hey, give me some QA environment, because before going to the production, before going go live, basically I want to test everything at my lower accounts, like pre-prod accounts, what we call in the world of IT, right? So I started with that. Even I proposed that solution. That was a weird one for me, I know. But I was learning at that point of time. But after working for a certain amount of time within this cloud platform, we realized, hey, let's segregate the model at least to a region specific environment. Let's deploy a dev environment in some other region, QA environment in a different region, and production based upon where your customers are, you can deploy based on those environments. So what does segregation help us? At least if my, let's say, Ohio is down, I'm just losing the QA data, or for that particular amount of time, I'm not losing, actually I'm getting impacted for the QA environment, but still my production and the dev accounts are up and running. Customers are not getting impacted, right? But it takes to design this model, to do the segregation, it was a huge task for us. And one of another example, again, no offense to any of the other teams, because I do deal a lot with the development team, where developers, they provision a lot of different kind of instances. As an example, right, R5 large or 16 CPUs, 200 gigs of memory. If that is not the requirement for you, then why should you provision that? So you can't control all those stuff. Okay. Then again, after gaining a lot of understanding towards the business and everything, businesses decided to move towards another strategy. Let's go with a multi-account workload. Segregate your workload of production, stage, and development environment, and any other environment, as a matter of fact, in a different accounts, right? So at least we'll be able to segregate all the models right away. That's the best practices says. Don't deploy your workload, every workload, in a single account, because that's a risk. If your workload is deployed on a single account, let's say if that account got compromised, you'll be going to lose the business right away. You're done with the business. You can't get the data back from the hackers. Okay. So that's why we decided to segregate the model between different accounts. But again, problem still persisted, how you can enforce the security best practices. Because let's say if your business is growing, you have grown up to 100 or 200 different AWS accounts. Every account has a different role to play, right? So in that case, you can't have a company standard policy applied across all those 100 accounts. Every account will get their own IAM policies, because that's where the segregation happens, right? Permission boundaries. You have to apply all the policies at each of the account level, and that's where the problem comes. As a company, so let's say I'm doing a startup, right? I have my own company. So in order to do my segregation, in order to apply my security best practices, I need to apply it on all different accounts. If I have 100 accounts, it's very hard to manage. To be honest, I have done that when the functionality of Control Tower organization was not there. I somewhere around 2014 or so. So we used to apply IAM policies to the dedicated accounts, and it was a huge pain for us. Most time-consuming process, huge pain to manage and everything, the security. Then consolidated billing was one of the biggest concern, I would say, because let's say you have 100 accounts, you're operating from 100 accounts. Then to pay to AWS, you have to go to each of the account, and obviously you have to configure all your payment detail. And then you don't know, the developer account is having how much of payment that you are paying as part of an organization. So all the different 100 accounts will have a different billing structure. So we were dealing with a lot of different posture of that particular billing cycle. It was a pain for us to pay for 100 different accounts, so we can't control most of the stuff over there. Again, management was still a problem for that. After seeing all this, somewhere around 2016, the consolidated billing concept was launched by AWS. Again, I don't remember the exact year, but somewhere around 2016, they launched consolidated billing. At least that solved the problem of 100 different accounts billing into one billing account. So so consider again, if you are the owner of a company, you don't want to pay 100 different accounts one by one. So consolidate everything at one place, analyze the billing of all those 100 accounts, and pay it to AWS, or as a matter of fact to any cloud vendor, right? So that helped us. That consolidated billing concept helped us. At least I can see all the billing consoles at one place, all the account billing at one place. I will show you in the demo section as well how it looks like basically. Then somewhere around in 2017, one of the wonderful service launched by AWS organizations. Now this is really, I like this service a lot. It helped us a lot in managing our different accounts. So consider this as a structure where you have a root account, a master account, and inside that you are getting all the different business unit with the different sorts of account. So obviously consolidated billing was launched bit earlier than organization, but that was associated with the organization as well. Another important factor what we got, centralized management. So I can control all the policies, all the guardrails and everything. At least the minimum guardrails I can control it from one place, which is from the master account. Then the account creation process was automated, and the consolidated billing and usage reporting was there as well. So a lot of different stuff got solved with AWS organization. Now, if I just expand this a bit, this looks like in this particular structure way, where you have a master account, service control policies, and then you have a BU structure, basically the OU structure I'm talking about. So business unit one will get their own set of accounts. Business unit two will get their own set of accounts. Business unit three will get their own set of accounts. So here I can control at least the policies. For example, I don't want developer to access my production account. So I can control, I can enforce the policies, enforce that control to all the accounts from the master account. So what all things happens over here, we have organizations, we call it as root. Now when I say root, it is more of your master account, a management account, we call it as master, management, root, or a pair account. One account will be controlling entire structure of your AWS environment within an organization, within a company. So if you have hundreds of accounts and you want to control from one place, AWS organization helped us a lot over there. All these accounts which you're seeing as a BU unit, these are called as member accounts, and all these are also called as organization units. So if you have worked on Active Directory, there also we try to segregate the permission boundaries, right? We create, like, operations will get certain sort of access. All the operations member will go to the operations OU within Active Directory. Then infra team will get their own OU structure. So the same model gets applied to organization, where we try to segregate the model into organizational units, and based on that, we can apply standard policies either to the OU as well as to the accounts. And the policy which I'm talking about is called as SCPs, Service Control Policies. Again, very important concept for us. This is basically your control. It's a policies applied to your organization. This is a bit different than your IM policies, because that's totally operated at the account level. This is getting operated at your OU or account level as well. If I elaborate a bit on AWS organization more, so this is your root account. Then you segregate two OUs, one OU on the left side, on the right hand side, we have another OU, organization unit. And within that, you can also create a sub OU. So one of an example is, let's create a security OU, right? Within security OU, you can create one account, and within that, you can create one more as, let's say, log archive. I'm just giving an example, just trying to correlate with this particular structure. Within that, you can have any number of accounts. Even one OU can be created with multiple accounts over here. On the right hand side, we have same structure. We have created an OU with the two accounts. We have created sub OU with the three accounts. And if you see the policies are getting applied at OU level and sub OU level as well. You can also apply the same policy at the account level. So that level of functionality we got from AWS organization. And this is really, I would say, one of pain pointer remover for us when we were dealing with a lot of different accounts. Then AWS launched another wonderful service, I would say, landing zone. So landing zone follows the well architected framework. It help you to create a stable and a secure environment with the best practices what AWS has learned with their customer, because AWS is in business from more than what, 12, 13 plus years, right? So they understood the requirement for customer. Hey, what kind of security, at least minimum security that you require, so that your accounts are get secure enough, so nobody can hack it out, right? So that's where the landing zone comes into picture. The enforcement of best practices comes with landing zone, where it improve your security control. Then obviously central user management, because it works in tandem with your organization. Data isolation, prod, dev, stage, based on those scenarios, customer to customer, we can do the data isolation. Improved visibility, so you can get more visibility to your account level as part of your security best practices. You can also set the limitation. So I'll tell you one example in terms of the limitation, which is very good. And every organization has feel the same part, right? So let's say we have a developer, right? Developer asks for an account. Hey, give us account because we want to do a development and we want to test it out, right? Now we have given them the access. We created an account, we given them the access, but they don't know what kind of resources they want to provision it, what type of EC2 instances they want to test out, right? Because as part of an organization, we have to take care of the billing part, because if you, because we are hourly charged, right, within cloud world. So if you have provision of very high end servers as an example, then you will be paying a lot of more money to AWS, or as a matter of fact, in any cloud world, any cloud vendors, you'll be paying a lot of money if you're provisioning very high end servers and you are not using that much of resources. So you can set the limitations for that account, like you can't provision uh, any other instances apart from T3 large, which is two virtual CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. So those limitations can be set around with landing zone. Now, if you see this particular architectural diagram, so this is your master account where we are having organization, and then we have divided uh, the below model, which are the member accounts over here, into core OU. Why we call it as core OU? Because we want to keep the infrastructure side of the house into the core organizational unit structure, and rest all your workloads will get segregated into different accounts. We call it as custom accounts, custom OU, or workload OU, or business OU, depend upon organization, because every organization naming conventions are different, right? Now, what we are doing over here, we are creating a shared services account, we are creating a log archive account, and security account. So one of our example with security account, like why we are segregating all these different accounts. One of the problem that it's solving for us, you can control security from one account, and you can enforce the security to all the member workload accounts. What does that mean? So, for example, you might have heard about Guard Duty, which is an IDS solution of cloud AWS. IDS is more of an intrusion detection system. So, for example, if any kind of an attack is happening to your system, then IDS will detect it, and then it will give you the result, hey, some attack is happening on your system. You can go ahead and take the preventive action. So, Guard Duty, so IDS is more of a scanning your environment, giving you the result. So, what you can do, you can enforce Guard Duty policy to all the member accounts. You can scan it from the single account. So deploy this shared security account as a Guard Duty account as an administrator, and from there, if you have 100 accounts as a workload, like a production, test, and dev account, then you can scan all those environment, get the data out of it, continuously scan it, and if there is any attack is happening, then take the preventive action. Log archive, why we are separating the log archive? Because as part of the best practices, it's always recommended that don't use CloudTrail as an example. Don't use the CloudTrail, which is a logging mechanism of the resources within AWS, what all things are happening on your account. Don't deploy that to local to that account. Because let's say if that account got compromised, you will not be able to get what is happening with that account. So it's always recommended to separate the CloudTrail and or the VPC workflow log as an example, send those logs to a different log archive account, right? So even if something happened with your dev account as an example, then you can still will be able to understand with the logs. You can analyze the log with certain analysis tool like AWS Athena, like, hey, what exactly is happening with my CloudTrail with that dev account? Is some attack happened or not? And then comes shared services model. Shared services is, again, if you want to control the CI/CD process, like a Jenkins deployment process from one account, and control all the 100 accounts, then you can do it. That's one of the thing. Or if you want to, control the communication between the different accounts, all the different accounts, networking model, then you can use shared service account, where you can deploy transit gateway, which is another cloud hub router, which will be able to help you to communicate from one. You can control everything from one place. So that's what landing zone is helping us over here. Now, in terms of the landing zone best practices, we have two options to deploy landing zone, because in the backend it's creating your account, but there are like two solutions we have for the landing zone. One is your AWS Control Tower, and one is your AWS organization. Why Control Tower is preferred on top of AWS organization? Because AWS organization, you need to think on certain policies, the standard policies, guardrails, SCPs, then your security. You have to think, you have to create those models, because it's a custom built solution. On the other hand, with AWS Control Tower, which is a fully managed service, you don't have to do anything from your end in terms of the management. AWS is helping us out on that side. But it's also providing us the predefined guardrails, which corresponds to the compliance policies. So most of the, because I am part of a lot of SOC compliance activities as well, right? So where we have to show them, hey, we are operating on a standard process, we have a standard security model, we have a standard policies, we are restricting everything from there. So AWS has somewhere around 23, 24 guardrails control that gets pushed out when you use Control Tower. So those 24 controls are created based out of the standard practices what AWS has learned over the years. So that get pushed out. So you don't have to worry about creating your own rules. You can still create your own rules, but these are the 23, 24 standard rules what has been created from AWS and pushing out to all the member accounts. You are getting centralized dashboard for monitoring and compliance status. So once you have, let's say, 100 accounts, all 100 accounts are part of this control tower, then you will see status as compliant or non-compliant. So one of an activity of non-compliant is, let's say you have opened your S3 bucket public to the world. That's a non-compliant. That's a no-no combination for us, right? Because that's where we store our lot of data, because it's one of the cheapest storage, right? So it has to be private. And if you open it for public, then it comes under the non-compliant status, and AWS Control Tower will give you that particular, uh, you know, the indication that it is non-compliant. Then account factory for provisioning new accounts. This is another good service that what we are getting with the AWS Control Tower. It uses service catalog. So service catalog is another service. On top of that, you can create a product. It's not only for account factory. So we call it as account factory because it creates our account. You just have to fill out the information, I guess 4 or 5 information as a form, click submit, wait for it, and your AWS will create a new account for you. So that's entire process is automated, right? And all the guardrails as part of the control tower will get pushed out to the new account. So you don't have to worry about enforcing the policies to the new account. But on the other hand, AWS organization, you have to deal a lot of manual intervention, lot of thinking is required. If we say the trade-offs, extensibility and the customizations are provided by this is the link that what we have. You can do the customization on control tower, and AWS Control Tower is supported in multiple regions now, because when it started somewhere around 21, I believe, then hardly few of the regions were supported. Now we have a lot of regions supported for AWS Control Tower. On the other hand, with AWS organizations, customer or partner owns all the development, all the coding, and they are responsible for integration and the implementation. So again, I'm not denying a fact that you have to use control tower, right? But it's best advice if you're starting your business with AWS, if you're moving your workload to AWS, then I would recommend, highly recommend, to use control tower. But if you have already 200, 300 accounts, because control tower comes with certain limitations as well. If you have more than 300 accounts, then control tower might be a problem, because every account in an organization is working on a different set of resources. When you implement control tower, and that's my experience, I'm sharing over here, that within an organization, if you have more than 300-400 accounts with AWS, then enforcing the policy might disturb your structure a bit. It takes time, but it might disturb initially the entire policy structure. Okay, so I hope till here you might got the clear idea about AWS organization, why we are dealing with landing zone, then organization structure and everything. Any questions till now? Because now we will be starting up the actual control tower. I wanted to cover up those concepts because that is required at least to understand a control tower. In the chat, anyone, any questions? We can't see the content properly. Okay. So as of now, it's good. Harish. Anyone? So everything is quite clear. That's what I'm getting at. Can we implement our custom SCP? Yes, you can implement your custom SCP. Perfect. So let's deep dive into control tower. Is there any limit on OU creation? As of now, within control tower, I guess I haven't seen that limitation. But with SCP, there is a limitation. You can have 5 predefined SCPs at that particular OU structure. Then what about the pricing? Pricing, AWS Control Tower as a service is free, but you have to pay for the resources that you are using it. Landing zone versus control tower. So landing zone, as I said, it helps you to segregate a lot of separation of the policies. Control tower is basically automating the landing zone factory. How much cost we need if we manage 10 AWS? It totally depends, right? So it totally depends upon the workload that you are using. If you are using, let's say, hundreds of EC2 instances, then based on that, you have to pay for it. Now, if you are just using control tower, Then you have to pay for certain rules like AWS config. That's not free. It get charged, but it's minimal, somewhere around less than $1 per rule is there for AWS config. That what Control Tower also uses. Can we import existing accounts? Yes, we can import existing accounts into AWS Control Tower. There is a proper documentation that we can import. So I will discuss on that as well. So let's discuss Control Tower. So Control Tower is helping. One of the important point just wanted to make over here. Control Tower is helping us to automate the landing zone, right? All the concept that what we have learned, organization, landing zone, OUs, SCPs, and everything will get handy over Control Tower. So if you use Control Tower, everything in the backend is what we have discussed till date. Now, AWS Control Tower, what we are getting, let's look at few of the pointers. Set up, govern a secure multi AWS account environment, right? So you can set up multiple accounts, and with the best practices, best security practices model gets deployed with your Control Tower. It follows the well architected framework. So when you deploy AWS Control Tower, it takes somewhere around 30 to 60 minutes. That's the configuration it takes. 60 minutes is the maximum time, but somewhere it takes around 20 to 30 minutes. I have seen it gets completed within 20 to 30 minutes itself. We are getting automation of the AWS account creation with built-in governance. That's what we discussed with the landing zone. So everything is automated, enforcing the best practices, standard regulatory requirements with predefined controls, pre-configured or predefined controls, what AWS is providing to us. And you can seamlessly integrate the third-party software. As an example, when you initiate Control Tower, it also creates single sign-on. So why single sign-on? Because let's say if you have 100 accounts, you're not going to use your IAM user ID to log into each of the 100 accounts. For that, we create a single sign on. So once you sign in and then add your all 100 accounts in one dashboard, and from there you can navigate. So that's where the control of single sign in comes into picture. We will discuss that as well. Now, you just have to enable it, provision it, and operate at scale. That's what AWS Control Tower is in general. So we are getting a lot of benefits with Control Tower. How it works, so there is a good documentation of a workflow, the initial documentation of a workflow, and the use cases, what businesses are looking for, the use cases over here. You can quickly deploy your application. You can provision your AWS account with compliancy, with a governance compliance system. Data, you can deploy the data residency control, and without compromising the security. That is the first priority, as I mentioned earlier. Without compromising the security, we are just provisioning account, we are deploying the data with the best security practices model. So let me first quickly jump to our AWS management console, because I need to initiate the AWS Control Tower configuration. It takes somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes, depend upon the backend resources. So meanwhile, it's getting configured in the backend. We will cover the entire concept of Control Tower. So let me just move out of it. And okay, so I was talking about this workflow basically. AWS Control Tower workflow, what AWS is providing to us. Now, if you see, we have an IAM, organization, and service catalog. So service catalog is helping us to create accounts at scale. You just have to fill out your basic information and then submit, wait for it, and your account will get provisioned. That's the automation of your account provisioning. Within Control Tower, you can do the segregation of the controls as well. So administrator will set up the landing zone, then enable your control environment at scale, create, enroll, update the accounts in the account factory, monitor your landing zone, and include the OU structure and everything over there. So basically, AWS is doing everything on behalf of you. You are just filling one simple form, and AWS is doing everything. It's kind of an orchestrator that what AWS has provided to us. So I'll share the link as well. This is a generic document what AWS has provided to us. Now let's navigate to AWS Management Console. Now there are like two ways that you can navigate to AWS account. This is a fresh account that I have created recently. Now, one of the prerequisite, I would mention one of a prerequisite of this AWS Control Tower, that when you create an account, leave it for 3 to 4 hours. Otherwise, it might fail while doing the configuration of AWS Control Tower. It might fail to get provision. I have done this recently. I'm hoping that it will not fail, but let's see. As I mentioned, we have two ways to navigate to Control Tower. You can search it, Control Tower, or you can go to services, management and governance, and you can go to Control Tower from here. So we have two ways to navigate. So let's go to Control Tower. Now, Control Tower is a regional service. Again, you don't have to worry about the region, because so let me just drop down this region specific environment. So as you can see, we don't have in California, we have in Virginia, Ohio, Oregon, Mumbai, and rest of the regions. Few of the regions are like not enabled with Control Tower. Now, you don't have to worry about the region specific where you need to deploy your Control Tower, because few of the features like account creation has nothing to do with the regions, right? Or enforcing the policies to all your specific accounts has nothing to do with the regions, but where you can deploy and configure rest of the regions as well. But you have to decide which is the home region for you, because once you deploy Control Tower, let's say in Virginia or Ohio, then you won't be able to change the home region. That will be acting as your home region, and from where you can see all your dashboards and everything. Perfect. So let's deploy our Control Tower. What we have to do, we have to go to setup landing zone. So as I said, in the backend, it's landing zone. We are automating landing zone with Control Tower. Let's look at few of the pointers. Pricing. While some of the AWS services comes at no additional charges, you just have to pay for service catalog, CloudTrail, config, CloudWatch, SNS topic, and S3 bucket and VPC. So Control Tower as a service is free, but if you are storing a logs, if you are storing CloudTrail logs, you have to pay for that. If you are using SNS, simple notification service, email service, then you have to pay for that. Those are the charges are there for Control Tower. Now, here is the home region. You cannot change your home region after setting up your landing zone. So, based on your requirement, you just go ahead and choose your home region. And as I said, you don't have to really worry about whatever you select, you just have to maintain it over there. Region denies setting. So we have two options. By default, it is not enabled, but as part of the best practices, I would go with enable, because all the guardrails and everything will get enabled with the Control Tower. So if I operate from 5 different regions, in that case, all the guardrails control policies will get pushed out, and it will get governed as part of the policy from Control Tower. So as you can see, when you select not enable, AWS Control Tower removes the control, so you it is not controlling for you. So that's why we go for enable it. Additional AWS region for governance. So as I said, if you want to operate from multiple regions, in that case you select multiple regions over here, and then AWS will help you to define the policy on those regions as well. So let me select Virginia as an example. So the number of regions you select, it takes that much of time to enforce the guardrails and everything. So I'm just selecting one, Virginia, because home region is there. So just wanted to show you that you can go for multiple regions as well. Click next. Now, foundational OU, we are creating two OU structure. One is security. You can name this as well in a different way. But in this OU structure, what we are getting two accounts. One is, as you can see, two shared accounts. One is log archive, where we'll be keeping all the logs, and analysis of all those account logs will get dumped into this log archive account. And the second one is the security audit. We can also refer as an audit account. That is where, let's say, we deploy guard duty, and from there we are scanning all the 100 or 200 accounts. Second one is additional OE that they are provisioning for us. Sandbox, you can name it as workload as well. Let's say workload, not sandbox. uh, Again, not intentional, but generally you can have a sandbox for the testing purposes, forensics for anything happened, then you can go for the forensics account and do all the analysis over there. And workload is most towards your business structures like dev, stage, and prod. So again, depend upon your requirement, your naming structure. You can give this as business unit as well, BU, or workload. Next, here you have to give management account. Now somebody asked me like how we can import the existing account. So here is an option that you can import your existing log archive account. This is more towards your log archive account, right, where we are trying to centralize all things at one place. Now here we have to give email ID. Let me go back to my email. Let's copy it. So this is a fresh account that I've created, and here I'll just give this as log. So that basically an alias to my main Gmail account on which the master account has been created. We will consider that in the backend. It's checking whether its account, this email is in use or not. Then we have audit account, and I will give this name as audit. Sorry. So again, in the backend, it's checking whether this email is in use or not. Click next. AWS CloudTrail configuration. So if you don't enable it at the CloudTrail org level, then it will not manage your entire different account CloudTrail logs. So it's always recommended to keep it enabled. Now, how much for how much duration you want to keep your logs? By default, it's 1 year and 10 year for the access logging. We don't need it that much of time because obviously after my demo, I will be deleting this. So based upon your org policy, I would recommend to keep it for 1 year, not for 10 years. That's a huge amount of time. But again, few of the companies do keep like a financial sector or a banking sector data that keep the logs for longer duration. So I'll keep it as 1 year. And you can also enable KMS. KMS is encryption, key management encryption, where basically it helps us to encrypt all our resources like your EBS volume, then rest of S3 buckets and everything. All resources will get encrypted with KMS. For that, we have to create KMS. I haven't created it, so I'm not going to create it for this demo. Again, we can edit and create once control tower is provisioned. We can edit the existing settings as well. So click next. One important thing for KMS that if you create a multi-region KMS, then it will not supported by control tower. It has to be a region specific. Click next. This is your review section, and with control tower we are getting created with 4 different roles. Let's see. So this is basically learn more about permissions. You are getting control tower admin, where this is one of an inline policy. So inline policy follows one-to-one relationship with your roles. Second role is your AWS control tower stack sets. That's more towards your execution of the cloud formation that also gets created in the backend. Then the third role we are getting for CloudTrail log, that is for sending and creating the log stream. And the fourth and the final role is your config aggregator. This is more towards your AWS config rule. So AWS config is a security services from AWS that helps you to understand compliance and a non-compliance activity. So for example, whether my S3 bucket is compliant or not. So let's use AWS config to understand that, and we are enforcing this policy for all the accounts in the backend that you have to follow this. So that's one role. And finally, you can also read about a few of the guidances what AWS is providing to us. And finally, we will check this box. I understand the permission of control tower and everything, and click on setup landing zone. That's how the configuration looks like for landing zone. So let's wait for it to navigate to the next screen. I just wanted to touch base on few of the concept. So I hope this clears at least how you start the configuration of landing zone. Estimated time is 60 minutes. Here you are getting a dashboard of everything like in your environment summary, how many OUs, accounts, then enable controls, that's your guardrails, proactive controls. Here you will get all the data. Let's see what control tower is creating for us. 2 org units, one for the shared accounts, one for the account that is provisioned by your users, the workload what we modified. 3 shared accounts, which are the management account, isolated accounts for the log and security. So we are getting that account as well. Native cloud directory with a pre-configured groups and single sign-on access. So by default, when you create Control Tower, it creates a default manage active directory in the backend, because to use single sign-on, you have to use active directory. Okay, so that's where it's creating a default directory with a pre-configured group. What follows for AWS SSO? 20 preventive controls, enforce policies, and 3 detective controls to detect the configuration violation. We will talk about the preventive and detective controls. This is basically your guardrails. Okay. Now, as you can see, one account is created. Uh, Now, one thing what I have observed, this is the mail that I'm getting at. So one thing I have observed that if you don't accept few of the information what it's talking about, then it might fail. So what I'm doing, so as you can see, this is cloud for DevOps sec plus audit account and log account. Accounts are created, and this is the invitation for us to join our single sign on. So again, single sign-on is nothing but a centralized dashboard where you will get all the accounts listed as part of the Control Tower implementation, org implementation, and then with one sign-in functionality, you will be able to navigate to all your listed accounts. So I'm going to accept the invitation, and if you see this URL, this portal URL is not the traditional one, console.aws.amazon.com. This is a apps URL under which you will get all the accounts listed. So let's accept this. Okay, some error is there. One sec. Uh, we can't connect to the server. There might be too much of traffic. Okay, so let's wait for a couple of minutes and then we'll be able to do it. Let me try this one. Yeah, it's still erroring out. So let's wait for this control tower to get provision. Where is that control tower? Let's wait for it and then we'll come back and see. So don't worry about the error. Okay. Now, the big question, why control tower? So you might have got a fair amount of idea that why we need to use control tower. Obviously, we are getting best practices. We are setting up the best practices with few clicks, then standardizing the AWS account. We are getting a centralized management policy, right? Everything at one place, we are controlling from one place itself. Enforce the governance and compliance proactively, and enable end user self-service. So example for this, again, we have checked that example for setting up the best practices, right? We have created our AWS control tower. It's in progress. As we can see, like 23 guardrails controls are getting pushed out. So we have to wait for them to, get configured properly. Then obviously we are creating a standard out of all the AWS account, then managing policy at one place, we are enforcing the governance as well, end user as a self service. So as I talk about service catalog, the account factory itself. So for example, as part of my organization, what I have done is like we have created certain specific roles for the developer leads, QA leads, the operations lead. Hey, you have the functionality to create your own account, so you are responsible for managing and everything. So we will give you the process of filling out the information. Just submit it, wait for it. It will have all the established guardrails and everything pushed out as part of the control tower policy, and then from there you can go ahead and use your services to your development team. Get continuous visibility into your AWS account. So obviously with that dashboard, we'll be able to see, hey, which are compliant and which are not compliant. And finally, that is something very important as an architect for me, peace of mind. Because let's say I'm not using control tower, I'm using organization to set up everything in the backend. So I have to think on writing up the policies, standard specific policies, standard guardrails, standard security firewalls, and everything, and push out all those to the different member accounts. But with control tower, I'm getting everything at one place. So that's how control tower is helping us. So that's why I always preferred, if you're starting your business, moving your business to cloud, then go ahead and use control tower. Okay, so few of the concept. that we have to do with Control Tower. One is it's enabling the governance. So we will be going to look everything one at a time. We'll be enabling the governance, right, with Control Tower. What it's doing in the backend, setting up a landing zone for you with best practices, establishing a guardrails, then automating your account provisioning process, and finally, we are getting a centralized identity and access with AWS SSO. Okay, and obviously the manage we are managing it continuously, AWS in the backend helping us out with those management. So that's how the governance system works. Because see, as part of any audit process, whether it is PCI DSS or SOC compliance or any other compliance system, you have to follow certain set of rules that you are secure enough that nobody can enter into your system, or you are controlling everything as part of your centralized company policy. So those things has to be in place, then only you will be able to pass SOC compliance or other compliance system. AWS Control Tower, where we are basically setting up landing zone. We have seen this architecture a lot now. Then we have a master account. We have organization getting what all things are getting in master account, AWS organization. Then we have single sign on. We are getting SSO directory. We got the mail. It's although it's not working, we just need to figure out why. Then we are also getting core OU, where the log archive and the audit account comes into picture, and then custom OU, where I provision the workload OU, right? Apart from that, we are also getting stack sets, which is more towards your cloud formation, infra as code, service catalog, more towards your provisioning account automatically with few set of information. Log archive, we have discussed this, like why we need log archive and audit account. And provision, that's where you can deploy your workload, dev stage and production. You can also create a baseline on your network. So few of the pointers on the landing zone again: pre-configured, secure, scalable, multi-account AWS environment based on the best practices model, multi-account management with AWS organization, IAM using AWS SSO, centralized log archive. That's what we are getting. We are centralizing everything with CloudTrail and AWS config, cross account audit access with SSO and IAM, self service. So you can provision the example that I talked about, developer lead, QA lead, and the prod lead. They will be responsible for provisioning it. So as an architect, I have done the configuration. Now it's your responsibility. You have to follow certain set of standards, because we have already defined the standard. Now on top of that, if there is a requirement, then we can create our own policy structure. And then finally, centralized monitoring and notification using SNS topic. So that's what your landing zone look like. Let me scroll to the next one. This is more of your multi-account model. So this is one of my implementation that I did for one of my client when Control Tower was launched 2 3 years back. What I did, so I did it like two ways. For one of my client, I did it for with the help of AWS organization. I created this entire stack manually. Obviously the account creation was more of a manual process, but there is a way that you can also automate that process with the help of cloud formation stack sets. You have to create service catalog as an account factory. You can do that. Then I created the workload OU based upon the business units, and sandbox for the testing purposes, forensics. I always keep forensics, because let's say if any attack is happening or any certain suspicious activity is happening on one of the dev account, then what I can do, I can take the data into the forensics, and from there I can do all sorts of analysis, and based on that I can provide the RC and fix the suspicious activity which is happening on my account. Also, the service control policies can be applied at OU level. It can also be applied at your account level. These are the accounts which you are seeing. So that is something I did it with the help of organization. And with Control Tower, after doing this, I use Control Tower as well, where it helped me a lot with configuration of SSO, and everything is getting placed from one single click of information. Centralized identity access management, which is your SSO. So AWS SSO provides a default directory, which we have seen as part of the Control Tower implementation. It also enables the federated access management across all your accounts with a predefined groups: Control Tower admin, auditor, service catalog, and users. I will show you once control tower gets completed. Pre-configured permission sets and options to integrate with your manage or on-premises AD. So this is one of a good integration what I have seen and I have done in for one of my client, where I use Azure Active Directory, and you can also use on-premises Active Directory. You can integrate that to AWS SSO, and from there you can control everything. The permission sets obviously has to be controlled at AWS level because the resources are at AWS side. But from the AD side, Azure or on-prem, you can control all the accesses. Like, hey, Shashank only needs an access to this account, so let's control that. Or let's say Piyush need access to a dev account, so let's give him the access within that OE structure. So that's how the centralized identity access management work with single sign-on. Service control policy. So before deep diving into service control policy, let me stop the presentation. Let's go back to control tower. Service control policy is very important for us to understand. Now, as we can see, we are at 3%, two organizations, security and workload. We have a root account, three accounts got created. That's good. And you can see the status of landing zone. The two of them are in progress. Let's go back to our email one more time. So we got the notification our account is created. That's for audit. Let's try to accept the invitation one more time. Yeah, now it's working. It took time, but it's working because of the load in the backend. As I mentioned, sometimes it takes bit more time to provision and everything in the backend. But again, 20 to 30 minutes is more than enough. Now here you have to set your password for single sign-on. This is the username, and now you have to set the password. So let me set the password over here. So password is created successfully. Now I can use that URL to log in to my AWS SSO directory, where I'll be able to see what all accounts are there. So perfect, but let's wait again. Let me go back. No emails yet. We'll be getting two more emails, basically one for SNS subscription and one for all the config rule, the guardrails that it's creating in the backend. So let's go back. Let me check. 28%. Yeah. Let's go back to the presentation again. Important topic, service control policies. So service control policies, this is basically an org policy that you can use to manage the permission at your organization. So it can be applied to your account, it can be applied to your organizational unit within org. So again, this is different from an IAM policy, but you can define, let's say I just want to restrict the permission of EC2 instances, provisioning of EC2 instances. So I can create a service control policy. I can apply to the organizational unit or to the account directly, so that nobody will be able to provision that EC2 instance apart from the administrators, right? On this particular intersection, as you can see, we have an IAM roles and permissions. Then we have org SCPs and permission boundaries, right? So users roles, we create users, we create roles, and we provide policy on top of that. Then we provide like what permission boundaries, we create permission boundaries. The intersections are basically allowed with SCPs. So all the intersection, basically it's a combination in the backend that it allows everything based upon your the policy that you are writing. Like if you are denying the access, then yes, you will get the deny access. If you're allowing it, then you will allowing that access. Like blacklist and whitelist, two concepts are there. Blacklist is basically denying the access, and whitelist allowing the access. Bit on more on the service control policy. So first of all, everything in AWS, when you start with, it goes with the explicit deny. Then it goes to, so it reads the service control policies, whatever you have written, then checks the permission boundaries, and finally go to the IAM policies, right? So one of an example of an IAM policy, let's say we create a policy to access S3 bucket from your EC2 instance. Then you have to create a role, which we call it as a principal, role or user, right? Then that role will get assigned to EC2 instance. Hey, we are assigning that role to you, then you can access your S3 bucket. So that is one kind of a permission boundaries that we have created to access the other resources. Within SCP, what you can do, you can restrict the permission at the account level or the OU level directly. So you don't have to create specific entries at your IAM. So that's how powerful SCP is. Few of the pointers, important one, SCP never grants permission. Just remember it. SCP never grants permission, right? It can be attached to account or OU. It has a highest level of priority. What does that mean? So, for example, you have a deny from IAM policies, or let's say if you have allowed something from an IAM policy, and if you have denied that same resources from SCP, then SCP will take the precedence over IAM policy. So, SCP always act as a top priority as compared to IAM policies. Default policy is full AWS access. So whenever we create control tower, or as a matter of fact, AWS organizations as well, what it does, it creates a full admin access to all the member accounts. So that's a default policy it creates. So which means you're not denying anything. It also supports condition. That is one of the good functionality, that I want to access EC2 instance, but I don't want to give a permission to reboot the EC2 instance or to stop EC2 instance. So those level of conditions can be tricked out with this SCP, service control policies. Few of the another important pointers, SCPs mostly are the org policies used to manage the permissions in your AWS organization. It also offers the central control over maximum available permissions to all your accounts, available with all the features within an organization, and are not available to the consolidated billing. So this is not applicable over here. So SCPs are not available if your organization has enabled only consolidated billing. So one of the important factor to note over here, SCP cannot be created if you are not using AWS organization. Second, if it is only enabled for consolidated billing, then SCP will not work. Again, to secure your environment 100%, SCP alone will not be able to help us. You have to create a combination SCP, IAM, guardrails. It's a combination, but plus the security firewalls and everything. It's a combination that you have to create that will help you to protect your environment from the attack, from the suspicious activity. SCP defines a guardrail or set the limits as well on the actions that accounts administrator can delegate to IAM users roles in the affected account. Again, the same stuff. You can limit a lot of different functionality with the help of SCP. So that's why SCP is very important for us to play around with, because that's where the permission boundaries help us. I believe we will be doing a session tomorrow for this IAM policies and everything, where Ashwarya, I believe, will be helping us out to understand the entire concept. Now, these are the few important example that I have taken, or basically help you to understand what SCP looks like. So one of an example, like prevent member accounts from leaving the organization. What does that mean? For example, I have given a full access, right? I have created multiple accounts as part of the organization. Now, since there is a full access, anybody can by mistake click on leave organization. So in that case, all the guardrails, everything will get missed out, right? And then you have to even think of how the billing will be going to happen for that account. So that's why what we can do, we can apply this policy, which is basically denying that you, even if you click leave AWS organization from the member account, you will get access denied. Block service access from the root user. This is one of the basic rule, the rule of thumb, I would say, when you operate with AWS, or as a matter of fact, any cloud vendor, that don't use root user to run your workloads, to configure anything on your account. Always create some administrator users and then use that to play around with the resources. So this will block the service access for the root user, right? Now, prevent users from disabling AWS config or changing its rule. So one of the rule is, hey, let's prohibit the read access, public read access from S3 bucket. Now, I have seen companies' data are getting hacked on S3 bucket Why? Because the configuration was not done properly. Now, if you remember from the previous session where other Shashank, not me, uh, explained the shared responsibility model. So it's not only cloud vendor responsible for doing everything. The data security, the workload security, something customer is responsible for it. If you're not configuring it properly, so for example, I have all the financial data kept in S3 bucket and I have opened it for public, right? Public access. Anybody can hack that data. That's what happened with a few of the companies in past, somewhere around 15, 16 time frame. So what AWS config will do, it will apply or enforce a rule within that account. Hey, let's prohibit the public read access. And with this policy, with this structure, we will be denying an access. Hey, nobody will be able to, you know, modify that particular structure what we have created as part of AWS config rule. So our rule will get intact and S3 bucket will still be able to contact privately on a private channel. Establish guardrails. So guardrails are the pre-configured governance rules for security, compliance, and operations. Now, as I said, like SCP is not alone will help us. So guardrails is bit different than SCPs. So SCP, you can control your policy structure and everything. Guardrails, again, these are the predefined controls what AWS Control Tower is enforcing in terms of the security compliance. The one which I talked about, AWS config prohibiting the S3 access, is one of a guardrail expressing the plain. This is almost a plain text English line for format what you can read. Two type of guardrails we have: preventive and detective. So preventive is basically preventing the policy violation through the enforcement, implementing using cloud formation and SCPs. So it's using SCP to enforce the guardrails, right? You can't enforce the guardrail by itself, you have to use SCP to enforce it. Detective, on the other side, it detects the violation and alert through a dashboard. Like AWS config is one of the implementation rule. You can get the alert notification with this detective guardrails. Three types of controls we have: mandatory, strongly recommended, and one is good to have. So mandatory is obviously whatever control tower is enforcing to us, that is mandatory controls. And strongly recommended, it's always good to go with that particular model. And good to have, there like one or two models what we have for good to have controls over there. That's the guidance from AWS. Easy selection and enablement of the organization unit. So as I said, it can be applied to the OU, it can be applied to the account. So preventive, as you can see, preventive, we have granular AWS policies and SCPs enabled to the accounts. Output is your AWS compliant. Detective, again, granular policy with config. So preventive is more towards your SCPs combination, and detective is more towards your AWS config combination. Then the output is compliant and non-compliant, because AWS config is a service which will help you to understand which all resources are compliant, which all resources are non-compliant. These are few examples of the guardrails. One of them is always use MFA for your root user, right? Now this is getting pushed out with the AWS config. So don't leave the root user, use MFA. MFA is a multi-factored authentication, basically adding another layer of security on top of your account, kind of an RSA token, 6-digit number. You can use Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, or if you have used RSA token in your company, so that generates a 6-digit number applicable for 20 to 30 seconds, keeps changing after that. Data security, disallow public read access. We have we got that right, because if it is public, we are done with the business right away. Network security, disallow internet connection via RDP. So for example, uh, jump host, or let's say I have seen this in my past where people created their workload machine and they have allowed everything from internet, right? So that is a no combination for any company to go with from the security perspective. Audit log, you can use CloudTrail and AWS config. Then you can also enable CloudTrail integration with CloudWatch. CloudWatch is another tool for doing the monitoring of your entire resources. CloudTrail is more of a log management within your resources, and you can integrate both to monitor it to make out a good combination. Encryption, that is another important factor. So now AWS has, I guess last year they launched every region can get enabled with AWS Amazon encryption, basically EBS encryption. So there is a dashboard that says you have to enable it, but with Control Tower, these are getting enabled by default. So you have to encrypt it, right? You can't go with the unencrypted drive just to protect your data, because that's where data resides. Drifting disallow the changes of AWS config role set up by Control Tower. So that, so if I go back over here, this policy is talking about that. Disallow the access of changing the AWS config rule. Perfect. Now, automate the compliant account provisioning. That's where the service catalog comes into picture. We get service catalog as a service created by AWS Control Tower, and that's where you just give us certain set of information like the email ID, OU, which OU you want to provision, and just click submit. It will create an account for you. Plus, AWS Control Tower will push out all the guardrails, IAM policies, not IAM, service control policies, and the predefined rules. So building account factory provides a template of standardize the account provisioning, configure the network resources. Now this option, I believe this has been removed from service catalog. This was there before, but now this has been removed. Automatic enforcement of the account baselines and guardrails published to AWS Service Catalog. So this is another good topic to discuss, but as of now, we are using Service Catalog for account provisioning that are getting built by AWS Control Tower. In the backend, it's a cloud formation template. That's what it's doing. Self-service account provisioning in AWS Service Catalog. What does this mean? So I'll go back to one of the example which I mentioned. In one of my organization, I created, after provisioning everything, I created, hey, you will be the point of contact from the development side. One person will be the point of contact from the QA side, and one person will be the point of contact from the production side. Now, if you want to provision your account, since all the guardrails, SCPs, and everything are in place, now if you want to provision your account, I'll train you first time. Set, obviously it's a simple form giving us the information. That's it, and wait for it. It will get compliant in nature with the help of all the policies pushed out by Control Tower. So you can take control over there. As an architect, you don't need to come to me every time or to a system administrator. Hey, just create an account. But few of the organization I have also seen, we have a security team that used to create accounts with the best practices if they are not using Control Tower. So those are the things help us to do, make it like a self-service account provisioning system within AWS. It's a service catalog, so we can create a permission to that service catalog. Hey, you can go ahead and create the account for your team. Now, as you can see, publish the account factory to Control Tower. So AWS Control Tower administrator publishes account factory as a product to AWS Service Catalog, and then service administrator that basically governs and entitle the portfolios and everything. So within service catalog, there are like two set of concepts that we generally talk about. One is portfolio, one is product. Portfolio is basically your container. Inside that, you can create multiple products like provisioning of EC2 instances, provisioning of accounts and everything. So that's what self-service account provisioning means with AWS Control Tower. Okay, so let me stop the presentation one more time. Let's go back to our AWS Control Tower. We are at 71%. Okay, so we got one email for subscription, confirming the subscription. So let's do that. So as you can see, this is an SNS topic for the aggregator. So let me subscribe to my SNS notification. Perfect. Let's go back. Where are we? Where is Control Tower? Here it is. So we are still at 71%. And if we check the status, we are almost done. So the audit account is configured, then log archive account is configured. We are just enabling the guardrails. So it might take another, I would say 5 to 10 minutes, I believe, or less than that. Totally depend. It's saying 18 minutes, but it will not take 18 minutes. Meanwhile, any questions till now? Are you getting the concept of Control Tower? Have you got the configuration model of Control Tower? how we can configure it. Obviously, there are like a lot of things we have to deal with Control Tower. I have another account where I have already set up my Control Tower. I'm running Control Tower over there. But before showing that account, I just want to ask a question. Any concerns in understanding the concept or how to configure it in the chat? Anyone? Can I use AWS Control Tower with my existing directory? Yes, Rohan, we can. There is an integration needs to be done with AWS SSO. So everything is quite clear. Silence means either you are getting anything or you are not getting anything. Okay, so finally we have a control tower already created. A setup of landing zone is completed. As you can see, we got the green signal. And let me go back. I should be getting some emails as well. Okay, that's fine. So let's navigate and try to understand. Oh, we have a question. Do we need to set up SCP post configuring control tower? So if you have to set up SCP of your own, so few of the SCPs already get pushed out with the control tower. But if you have to create your own, then after the deployment, yes, you have to do. How to troubleshoot any failure during the deployment? So there is a set of guide with AWS that I will share with this channel, where you can see. So one few of the deployment failure is if you don't click on the subscription. So if you don't subscribe it, that's what their documentation says. If you don't subscribe the SNS notification, then in the backend it will not understand whether control tower is working properly or not. You are not giving the proper response to it, so it might fail. Another prerequisite which I talked about, when you create a new account, just leave it for 3 to 4 hours. Otherwise, control tower implementation will fail. That's my take on that. Can we add our custom compliance rule or guidance in Control Tower? Yes, we can. So let's go to Control Tower. Let me show you a few of the things and we can discuss on that as well. Yes, that is possible. So as you can see, we are having two org unit, three accounts, right? If you remember, while doing the configuration, we selected security and the workload, and three accounts is more towards your management, which is your master pair account. The second one is security, and third one is the audit. Second one is security, and the third one is the log archive. 21 preventive controls. That's what the predefined controls which I talked about. Detective controls are three. Okay, nothing is there in the non-compliant resources, and we have three, as you can see over here, enrolled accounts. So it's owned by control tower, all are compliant and enrolled. Let's navigate to few of the structure over here. So let me click on view all org unit. So here you can see this is my master pair account. That's the management account. I created the workload. Then there is a security OU. Everything is under root account, root OU basically. So security will have two accounts, log and audit. Okay, registered and enrolled. Then so when you create an OU, it goes to the register state. When you enroll an account, it goes to the enrolled state. You're getting all the details over here, right? Now, if we go to controls, so by default, I believe there are like 362 controls are there. It's not all applied. Only few of them are applied, the important ones. But let's say if you want to apply as part of your standard, then you can apply search the security controls from here, and you can go ahead and enable the control that will enable it for you on that particular OU structure. Then landing zone settings, you can, as I mentioned earlier, you can modify the settings as well. So let's say if you want to do some sort of modification over here, then you can go ahead and do the modification, the edit settings basically. So this is what we have in landing in AWS Control Tower. So let's navigate to AWS org. Oh shit, I clicked. Okay, that's fine. Let me show you the org structure. So organization is a global service. It's not regional, right? It's loading. Just wait for a minute. Come on. You know what? Let me change my Wi-Fi a bit. It's a bit slow. Okay, now we have it. So this is our org, right? The same structure what we have observed in AWS Control Tower, right? Now, if we go to the policies on the left, there is something called Service Control Policies. Click on Service Control Policies. These are the guardrails. The customer managed policies has been pushed out. And as you can see, full AWS access is managed by AWS. That's the default policy that AWS has created for us. No deny access. Right now, if you want to read out what this policy is all about, then you can navigate to that policy. You can read out the policy. This is more towards your AWS Control Tower execution. As you can see, deny access to all your IAM activities, marketplace, and everything. Which OU is associated with this workload, right? So that's what AWS has pushed out to the workload OU. Now, if I go back to service control policy, let's see the other one and the target. This is also for the workload OU. That's for the security, right? So these two accounts are added with those policies. And even if you want to see what policies are there, so you can go to the policies into that account basically and go to that policy, and you can see all these policies are pushed out over here. So that's how you can see the policy structure. Now if you want to create a policy, I will create the policy as well. Now it's more of a all practical on our control tower. So let's do one thing. Let me first copy uh, which is, where is the URL? I'm going to show you the single sign-on feature. Where is that? Yeah, this is the one. Let's copy this. If you remember, we set up, not we, I mean, Control Tower set up the SSO for us, and here we'll be going to see all the accounts listed. Let me change my Wi-Fi setting, guys. There might be a blip, but let me change that. That will help me to navigate faster. Okay, so I'm still there. I have changed my Wi-Fi settings. So let's log in. So I'm logging to my AWS single sign-on account. Here you will see all the accounts are listed. Now this is fast, yes. As you can see, 3 accounts. Let's expand all the 3 accounts. So this is the audit. This is the log. You can see we are getting AWS admin access. Within the master pair account, we are getting 2 rows. One is for your service catalog end user, and that's where we will give access to the certain listed people so that they can provision the account, right? So let's navigate. I'm now logging into this account, this master account with AWS service catalog end user. If I log in with admin access, then I will not be able to navigate to service catalog. It will not show me the service catalog. Come on. Okay, it's logging me to my master account as a service catalog user. So remember, we selected our home region as Ohio, so we have to navigate to Ohio because service catalog was deployed in Ohio only. And again, 2 ways to navigate: search it, service catalog. And here, first we will be going to create one account real quick. Okay, so that's your service catalog, account control tower factory. So what we have to do as an end user, I'm seeing this. So I can launch a product. Here, let's give this name as tool. It's just a product name. So it can be anything. Account email. So let me use this one. Plus tool again in alias. Account name as tool. Workload. I'm sending this to my workload account. Now, SSO user email ID. We already have an SSO created. So I'll be using the same user email ID, which is this one. And or you can create your own, but better to create use the existing one, because if you create multiple SSO account, it will be hard for us to maintain it. Now, cloud, first name, last name, you can do the tagging of this one as well, and you can send out an email notification with SNS topic. So click on launch product. So once you click on launch product, it takes somewhere around 5 to 10 minutes to create your account. First, it will create an account, then it will add it to your SSO over here. We will see one more account soon. And then it will try to push out all the guardrails. So let's go back to our control tower over here. Control tower. Perfect. So these are the things. Now, if you want to see, let's go to one of the account log archive. I'm into control tower and I'm going into one of the account. As you can see, this is the landing zone version 3.1, two governed regions because we have selected Ohio and Virginia, controls 21 preventive and 3 detective. Okay, and it will load control over here. Let it load. So we have two pages, 24 controls over here. As you can see, Amazon CloudWatch, then Event Bridge, S3 bucket, prohibited prohibited read public access. So this is one of our mandatory controls, which needs to be there as part of your AWS organization. Behavior is preventive and guidance is mandatory. So if you remember, we have two set of guardrails, preventive and detective, mandatory and strongly recommended. So let's navigate to the second page. Do we have anything apart from preventive? Okay, elective is more towards your good to have kind of, right? Rest everything is mandatory. So that kind of controls we are getting it for all the accounts. Okay, so let's go back to org one more time, dashboard. Account is still getting provision, so it will take time. Meanwhile, let's play with few policies, because somebody asked me, hey, can we create a custom policy? Yes, we can create a custom policy. So let's create a policy. So I'm into AWS organization, into the policies, service control policies. Here we have an option to create a policy. I'll give this policy as deny, and I will choose one of a policy, let's say shield. The shield is a service, it's a firewall service. I'm going to deny the shield access to one of the account. Shield. Okay. Here we can now, if you know how to write JSON structure, then yes, you can do that. Otherwise, you can play around with the GUI as well. Shield. Okay, I go for all the actions and resources. You can also select the resource type, whether you have protection group or attack or protection. I go for all resource. So this is the policy. I'm denying this statement of accessing shield on all the resources in that account. So click create policy. Now this is a custom policy, right? So custom policy is created. In order to attach this policy to specific OU or specific account, what you can do, click on actions, attach policy, and here either you can apply to the security account or you can apply to the specific account itself. OU or account, both will work. Now, as you can see, this account is created, the tool that what we launch, but still the guardrails are getting provision in the backend, like pushing out the policy in the backend. So let me first just apply on the log archive account, attach policy. So policy is attached. Let's navigate to this SSO, since this is running in the backend, right? So let's close it and we go to management console with the log archive account. Now this account has an administrator access with full admin access. If you remember, full admin access is the default one. Now if I search for shield, it's a WAF and shield. Let's see how quick is that, the applying of the policy. So if I go with get started on the shield on the left hand side, as you can see, fail to reload the resources because there is an explicit deny. Although you are an administrator, although you have an full AWS admin access, but after applying the policy, the explicit deny is always having a precedence over your allow action. So that's how the policy works within AWS. Also, the policy that I listed over here, I'll show you that one of an example. Let's create one more policy. Let me go back to the service control. Let's create one more policy. Deny leave org, paste, create a policy, and let's attach this policy. So before that, I applied the policy to the account. Now I'm applying the policy to the security OU. Attach it. And let's go back over here and search for organizations. I'm into the log archive account. Since I have applied to the OU, it should inherit all the child members. Come on. So here is an option to leave the org. Let's click on leave org, leave. As you can see, you don't have permission. Again, there is an explicit deny. Nobody will be able to do or leave any kind of org, whatever they are part of, if you apply that policy with the help of SCP. So that's how the real SCP works in terms of allowing or denying. It's not only deny, you can also allow few of the functionalities. Since we are already having full access to all the member accounts as part of the default policy, that's why I showed you the deny access. Sorry. Okay, so let's go back to our, cancel this. Let me check. I'm going back to my management account to the service catalog stuff. Just wanted to check what is the status. You can also check the status from Control Tower. Let me refresh. To org, 4 accounts. Perfect. We have the 4 accounts listed. As of now, the status is unknown because it's in the state of enrolling, right? So once this gets enrolled properly, then it will get the status of compliant. Let me show you that structure as well. This is my different account. Let me go to Control Tower. Since that is taking time, so I just want to show you how it looks like. So I have 5 different accounts, AWS account. And as you can see, I created sandbox and tools. These are self-owned because I have kicked off the entire process of account provisioning, and the status is compliant and enrolled. Now, if you go to any of the account, here only 16 preventive guardrails are implemented. Why? Because all the guardrails are not required as part of the best practices. They're like few specific rules are applied only to the master account or the child accounts, right? So that's why the workload account that I have created, the important ones has been pushed out to these accounts. Okay, perfect. So now I hope we might have listed one more account over here as well in SSO. Let's see. 4 accounts, as you can see, tools, and we have org full access and AWS administrator access. So this might go away because of the policy that I created in the backend. So this might go away, or because this is not required, right? It's a custom policy that we created. Not we create. I mean, this will go away once the compliance comes into picture, because as of now it's not compliant, still enrolling into the state. Let's go back to the dashboard. Not this one, sorry. Yeah, it's still unknown, so we have to wait for it to make it as compliant. Yeah, so that's how the control tower looks like. Let me go back to the presentation to the final time, and let's cover a few of the key pointers. Summary of the key features: we are getting automated landing zone with a best practices blueprint. Again, blueprint is more towards what what you are getting configured as a pre-configured rules in the backend. On top of that, it's using landing zone. On top of that, control tower is automating the entire stuff. Guardrails for the policy management. Account factory, we are getting that in an automated fashion. We have seen that. Dashboard for checking the visibility of compliance and non-compliance. Then built-in identity access management, which is more of your SSO. Pre-configured log and archive account as part of the best practices. Always remember, segregate your log and security audit account in a different fashion. Then built-in monitoring and notification and automatic updates. Since it's a managed services in the backend, the versions keeps changing. I haven't seen any impact while doing the version update in the backend. What AWS is doing as of now, it's 3.1, which is the latest. So that's how it looks like in terms of the control tower, its features, how you can configure it, and how you can play around with the control tower. So any questions, because we are at the end of our presentation, and any questions with control tower, any confusion or any kind of questions, I would say. So one question is, in which account we should place transit gateway or VPN connection? So it depends, right? You should place it in a shared services model, shared services account, where basically you will have either CI/CD process or transit gateway or a VPN connection, and from there the network will get control for all the member accounts. We call it as an hub spoke model. So I implemented one of a hub spoke model almost 3 years back, where hub was more of a taking the traffic from the gateway, and prod and pre-prod were using the hub model for the networking area. So all the traffic was coming from the hub to spoke model. So that's how you can do with your organization and control tower as well. Any other questions? Okay, so that's where I'm available at. I'm there at LinkedIn, which is I'm very active at LinkedIn. That's the only place I'm active at. I have a YouTube channel. That's the link for my YouTube channel. I'm there at Udemy as well. That's my new blogging website recently launched. And you can reach out to me at this email address if you are facing any issue. So Sanchit, I guess I'm done with my demo and the control tower concepts and everything.
Awesome. Thanks, Shashank. Thank you so much. I really see that you need a break. So please take a break, and I hope please stay with us for next 10 minutes or so. I'm pretty sure audience would have some questions. And for all the audience, thank you for staying with us for almost continue like a 2 hours. We'll have now quiz for all of us. So let me have Shashank in the backstage and let me share my screen.
I hope it was not a boring session.
No, it wasn't not. I can say that. So yeah, I would request. I think the link we are posting the link in the chat. Please register soon. We will be starting our quiz in next few minutes. And in meantime, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. As well as we will be also sharing a playlist. If you are joining this session for the first time and you have missed our session one, we already have it stored on our YouTube channel. So I'll share the link for the same and you can have a look over it. So few more minutes, I would just refresh. There are 10 participants, what I can see here on my screen. And again, just to call out a couple of things, this is a marathon or a tournament kind of thing. So we had a leaderboard which was from the last event. We will have this, which will continue up to our 9 series. We just want to make sure that who are our active participants, we get them the good rewards and recognition. So please do join all of our sessions and participate in the quiz. The top 3 winners across the maximum sessions will be the one will be getting the rewards. So I see 10 people are there. Let me wait for a few more minutes and then I will start. And in meantime, for the people who have already here, if you have any questions for Shashank, you can please put it in the chat, as well as Shashank has shared just one link, which is around how to troubleshoot the control tower. I'm just sharing that link in the chat. And yeah, don't worry about all, as I mentioned in the last session, don't worry about the presentations and other stuff. Please subscribe to our registration page, because via which we will be sharing all materials from the last session, which means the presentation, any sorts of link, dashboard, or any kind of other materials which were shared by the speakers, codes and everything via this particular folks who have registered on this particular page or for the event. So please register it for the event. I'm flashing the screen link on the screen. So I see that we have the required people. So let me start ahead with our first question. So all the 10 folks who have registered, stay tuned. We are starting with a quiz. Let me spin up our first question for today's. Who provides easiest way to set up and govern a secure multi-account AWS environment based on best practices established through AWS experience working on thousands of enterprise as they move to cloud? The options are AWS IAM, AWS Control Tower, AWS Management, AWS Landing Zone. A good question, and I think this is what something Shashank mentioned his personal experience also before working on this kinds of stuff. So yes, the right answer is Control Tower, and we can see 5 participants have given the right answer. That's good. Let me spin up the next question. We can see the leaderboard here. The leaderboard JP is currently on the top, followed by Akhilan, and then we have Arvind. Let me get for the second questions. The second question is coming soon. Here we go. How much time does it take to set up multi-account environment using Control Tower? I think for the folks who have been in this session throughout, they know it. 30 to 60 minutes, it's 1 hour, less than 15 minutes, more than 24 hours. So how much time does it take to set up multi-account environment using Control Tower? Last 6 minutes, 6 seconds to go. And the right answer is 30 to 60 minutes. Within that, we have 4 participants who have given the right answer here. And we can see a change in the dashboard on the leaderboard. The first place is Akhilan, followed by Rohan, then Arvind, and JP at the 4th. Still, we have 8 more questions. Let me spin up the third one. Here we go. Which policies you can use to manage permissions in your organization? I think this is what someone asked the question in the chat, and I think Shashank answered it. IAM roles, AWS trusted policies, service control policies, organization policies. Which policy you can use to manage permissions in your organizations? 3, 2, 1. And the right answer is service control policy. And we see 5 participants who have given the right answer. The leaderboard, there's a slight change in the second and third position. The first has been Akhilan, second is Arvind, and third is Rohan. Let's move to the next question, question number 4. AWS SSO provides default directory for dash identity, users, group, or entity. AWS SSO provides default directory for Dash. And here we go. So the right answer is identity. And we have 3 people who have given the right answer. We can see that there is no change in the leaderboard. Akhilans remains one. No, there is a slight change in the second and the third position. Akhilans remains at the top, followed by Arvind, and then we have JP, and Rohan moves to the fourth position. Let's get to the fifth one. Service control policies can be attached to only account, only on OU, account and OU, none of this. Service control policies can be attached to what? We have 13 more seconds. Here we go. Okay, the right answer, which I've given the maximum of the participants, is account and OU. So the leaderboard remains Akhilan at the top, followed by Arvind, and then we have JP and Rohan at the fourth. Question number 6. AWS Control Tower uses Dash service principle. controltower.amazonaws.com, ct.amazonaws.com, controltower.aws.com, account.aws.com. AWS Control Tower uses the Dash service principle. This looks like a tricky one. So the time is ticking out. Let's see. The right answer is controltower.amazonaws.com, and we have 3 right participants. Again, leaderboard remains the same. Akhilan at the top, followed by Arvind and JP at the third. And there's a change in the fourth position where we have Vishal at the fourth and Rohan at fifth. Let's move to the 7th question. Last 4 to go. Can we enable trusted service access using the organization CLI or SDK? Now, options are yes, we can do it. No, we cannot do it. Can we enable trusted service access using the organization CLI/SDK? And the right answer is yes, which is given by maximum of the participants. And we can see a change in the dash in the leaderboard. Arvind comes at the top, followed by Akhilan, and then we have JP at third, Vishal at fourth. Let's move to the 8th question. Last 3 questions to go, guys. I can see a good change now. Give the policy name. So here is a policy on my screen, which is at your screen too. Organization full access. Option 2, organization read-only access. Third, organization read and write. And fourth, organization read-only. Interesting. Give the policy name. And we can see the right answer has been given by most of the participants. 6 participants have given the right answer, which is organization full access. And if we see on the dashboard, we have Arvind at the top, we have Akhilan at the second, JP at the third, Vishal at fourth. Let's move to the 9th question. Last 2 to go, guys. OU and SCP stands for what? A simple one. OU and SCP stands for what? Organization and Secure Code Policy. Second, Organization Unit and Service Control Policy. 3, Organization Unit and Secure Control Policy. And 4th, Organization Unification and Service Control Policies. A very simple one to answer. OU and SCP stands for what? And we can see the right answers is organization, unit, and service control policy. I think that's the largest term which Shashank has talked throughout his session, along with control tower. So those are the three terms which he has repeated throughout his session, right? So I'm not surprised that everyone has given almost this right answer. Arvind, from a leaderboard standpoint, Arvind remains at the top, Akhilan is second, Vishal has come to the third position, and fourth has been Rohan. Last question to go. Let's see how the dash leaderboard remains after this question. How many roots are there in an organization? Interesting one. How many root are there in an organization? 1, 2, 5, unlimited. This is the last question for the quiz. And let's see who remains at the leaderboard after this question. As we know, it's root as equal to one account, and 7 participants have given the right answer. Let's see the leaderboard. The leaderboard, the first place is Arvind, the second place is Akhilan, and the third place is Vishal. So if I bring up the dashboard, here the leaderboards looks like. So congratulations Arvind, Akhilan, and Vishal for being into the top 3 for today's quiz. As I mentioned, this is a tournament, so I request you please be joining all of our sessions and make sure that you participate in all the quiz after the session, so you remain at the top 3 position in the leaderboard after the end of our 9 session series, so we can get you the maximum rewards and other kinds of recognitions. So that's what I had from today's session. We will take 2 minutes. If you have any questions for Shashank, he is in the backstage. If you have any questions for Shashank, please put it in the chat. If not, then please join us tomorrow, same time at 10:30. We will be having a continued part 2 session of this, which is talking about the AWS Identity Access Management, known as IAM, and policies, roles, and other kinds of best practices. So it's going to be very really important thing that control tower plus IAM goes hand in hand. So tomorrow we'll have our part 2 session, 10:30 a.m. And please do join us for the session. I'll take a pause. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Awesome. I see there are no questions in the chat. So once again, thank you so much, Shashank. I know there's a great effort what you have put to get the session through, right? Thank you so much for spending time from your weekend. I really appreciate it for joining us for this entire security series. Along with that, I want to really appreciate, thank you all of our participants. It's not that easy that you spend a couple of hours from your weekend to learn with us. Thank you so much. And thank you to all our community partners for supporting and guiding us for this event. With that, I'll see you guys. I'll take a leave for today and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.